Hey everyone, so this is a follow-up video to my U-Haul rental experience video. You can check that out at the end of this video. I have it as a thumbnail. But in this particular video, I'm going to focus on the actual vehicle that I rented. We'll be giving you an overview of the exterior, interior features, as well as the driving experience. If you go on U-Haul's website, you'll find that they offer these 9-foot vans from different manufacturers like GMC, Ford, Ram, Chevy. And with these different manufacturers, obviously the size and dimensions will be a little bit different between the different models. But overall, you can expect these dimensions for the interior cargo space and door opening. So you can plan ahead using basically those dimensions. Personally, I rented the GMC, didn't get a choice for that. That was just the one they handed me the keys for. So I'll be giving you an in-depth tour of that particular model, but I can also give you the exterior overview of the Ford. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior of this vehicle. So taking a look at the exterior, there's definitely quite a bit of a difference between the Ford and the GMC. As far as I can tell, the Ford is a little bit of a newer model and it's also seemingly a little bit longer. So if you did get a choice, I would definitely pick the Ford over the GMC. But you can see that they have very similar features exteriorly. They both have this nice step up on the sides with grip tape, so you can help load things easier from the side. And also in the rear, it is a little bit more of an elevated vehicle compared to, of course, normal cars. And then here on the Ford, I can easily see where the spare tire is just hanging out underneath the vehicle in the back here. And speaking of the rear part of this vehicle, you can see that both of them have a backup camera installed, so that's nice, very helpful. But for the GMC, they did add these protruding blocks on the rear bumper of the GMC. I'm assuming just because the GMC's bumper doesn't protrude as much compared to the Ford. And if you take a look at these protruding hinges, they are that way because they're double hinges so that they can open very widely. If you have to load very large furniture, it won't obscure your rear opening. There are also additional side doors on the right side, the passenger side of the vehicle, so that after you finish loading from the rear, you might be able to even stick things through from the side. So with all these doors, they do all have to be manually unlocked one by one, and you also have to, of course, manually relock them one by one when you return the vehicle. And if you're wondering where do I fill up the gas for these, well, it's here on the driver's side, pretty close to the door for the Ford, and then a little bit farther out for the GMC. For the Ford, I believe there's a little latch inside to push open the gas cover. But for the GMC, there's no such latch. You literally can just physically open it from the exterior without having access to the interior of the vehicle. But both of these vehicles just take unleaded regular gas. Now, I know on U-Haul's website they say the clearance height is 8 feet, but it does of course vary from vehicle to vehicle. For example, for the GMC, it's actually 7 foot 2 inches. Something to keep in mind if you think you're going to have to travel underneath some tight bridges. Talking about the windows, you notice that the rear windows are clear, they're not painted over, but the side windows are. So the reason for painting over the windows is to prevent people from being able to easily see into the vehicle. But of course, if you press your nose up against it, you can kind of see what's inside. So here's what the Ford one looks like. Take a good look because this is the best shot I got of it since I didn't get to actually drive this vehicle. But it looks pretty bare bones, you know. It'll have your radio, your AC controls, cruise control, but it doesn't have things like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or anything like that. It does seem very similar to the GMC that I drove, which had, plenty of ample front space, lots of cup holders as well. Now here's an actual inside view of the GMC. So on the left side, driver's side, you are able to, of course, adjust your side view mirrors, and they are split to see the blind spots. If you have a packed vehicle, you most likely won't be able to take advantage of that rear view mirror, so definitely getting the side view mirrors right is very important. Also, don't forget to adjust your driver's seating. Unfortunately, it's not able to raise the height of it, and that's one of my concerns as being a shorter driver. But I'm happy to report that as long as you are taller than the 4'10" legal driving height without disability, you can still drive this vehicle because of the good visibility of the windshield. Now for all of these 9-foot vans, they do come with cruise control, and you can see the controls for the lighting, including the dome lighting, is here on the left side. And for the particular GMC model I was in, it did have some basic LED messages that pop up in the dash, like this one is saying that the passenger door is open. The necessary driving amenities are there, pretty easy to use, including the blinkers, the windshield wipers, the lights. Then towards the center of the vehicle, you can see that the rear view mirror actually does have the backup camera in here that's just specific for the GMC. It might be a little different for the Ford. And it also has some very basic air conditioning here. It's pretty powerful for my use and it has a really basic radio. I don't see a CD drive, but it does have an aux port so you can plug in your tunes from your phone. It doesn't also appear to have Bluetooth or USB to play music, but it does have 2 auxiliary power ports so you can use that to your advantage. And here in the center on the floor is actually a red toolbox. I can assume that it's also to help with maybe changing your tires if need be. But overall, there's a lot of space between the 2 seats, the driver's seat and the passenger seat, so you can also put more stuff here. Peeking in here in the back cargo space, again for the Ford I can only give you this shot, but you can see that the actual weight capacities are different between the two. The Ford is able to hold a little bit more, but you can see both of them have these wooden slats against the sides so that you can tie furniture to. And the floors have rubber mats so you don't have to worry about things sliding around, unlike the box vehicles which don't have any kind of lining on the floor, so that's really nice. But something to keep in mind are those wheel arches, which will take up a little bit of space on the floor, so it's not a perfect rectangle, so just something to keep in mind. For the GMC, maybe also for the Ford, there are some set of tools tied to the corner here. I can only imagine that it would be the jack and some tools to help you with tire changing. So hopefully all that information helps you become a little bit more familiar with these vehicles before you rent them out. Now talking about the driving experience, which was definitely one of my main concerns before I rented this vehicle. Since I'm a little bit on the shorter side, I wasn't sure how the driving experience would be like. So here is my personal experience. So I can only comment, of course, on the GMC vehicle, but I can assume that a lot of these things would transfer over to the Ford model as well. In terms of acceleration, it is a relatively big vehicle, so not great 0 to 60, of course, and you can definitely feel the load when it's all packed in. So definitely give yourself some time to, bring it up to speed, especially to bring up the highway speeds, stay in the right lane for the most part. And I did notice that it takes a while for the acceleration to smooth out. So it takes a while to get up to the proper gear. And braking is also kind of in the same boat here. It's okay, it's doable. You just have to give yourself more time, more following distance, and start braking earlier than a typical car. When driving a straight line, shifting lanes, making turns is generally not too difficult. Definitely when you're shifting lanes, you gotta be very mindful about those blind spots. Would really help if you have a passenger sitting next to you. When making turns, you want to make a little bit wider turns. So if you're in the leftmost lane making a left turn, kind of scoot over as much as possible to the right to make the turn. It's not so big that you have to actually scoot a whole lane over to make turns, but it is something that you want to keep in mind. You want to make wider turns than normal. And yes, it's a big car, but you are also seated up a lot higher. And what I noticed is that the visibility, at least for the driver's side, for the front area is pretty good. And the suspension is also very good. It's a very soft and actually very bouncy suspension. Took me a little bit to get used to, but it's a relatively comfortable ride, if not just a little bit bouncy. I would say the most difficult part of handling this vehicle is definitely the parking, especially parking backwards. So luckily this does have that backup camera system, and in the GMC it's actually shown up in the rear view mirror. And there isn't any beeping that happens when you are backing up, so there's no audible sound that comes out. So when backing up, definitely take your time, look at the rear view camera, take a look at your blind spots in your side view mirrors. And I guess the theme here is just be, a little bit more cautious when you're driving this vehicle, but otherwise it wasn't a steep learning curve at all. I drive a subcompact car normally, but it didn't take me very long to get the handle of driving this vehicle. And it definitely, again, helps to have someone sitting next to you. So that's an overview of what you can expect when you rent a 9-foot cargo van from U-Haul. If you're interested on the entire process of renting and U-Haul or returning the vehicle, definitely check out the video that I just made. Thanks for watching.